Roger, roll pitch.
They captivated the world with their slingshot around the moon.
Houston now controlling the flight of Integrity on the Artemis II mission around the moon.
But the crew of Artemis II is now in the history books. Now it's time for Artemis III.
The Artemis II crew, comrade, hands you the baton. You got the controls.
Commander Randy Bresnik, pilot Luca Parmitano, and mission specialists Andre Douglas and Frank Rubio will carry NASA's moon mission forward now, testing key equipment future missions will use to land on the lunar South Pole.
To the Artemis III crew, we wish you Godspeed on the journey ahead. You carry the fire of exploration from generations past, the confidence of this agency, and the support of this nation.
Just after the announcement, they sat down with MS Now. Their turn to make history.
We were called a couple of weeks ago in the boss's office and introduced to each other as the Artemis III crew.
Have you worked together before, or is this really the first time you will have the chance to spend time together in the first place?
Yeah, actually, I don't think any of us have really been to space together for sure. But of course, we work together in the office working on different projects. So we all know each other as friends, as coworkers. But as far as working on a mission together, this will be our first time.
One of the things, Frank, that I think so moved the world was the camaraderie of the Artemis II crew. How do you see, you've had a couple of weeks to kind of start to gel, how do you see yourselves working in that context?
I think we'll be a little quieter. but it's not too hard to do. But yeah, I think in the same vein, good friendship, trust, and confidence in each other.
And we're just gelling. We've had a couple weeks and we're sorting it out there at the end of a 3-year period where they've gotten to know each other so well. We have less time to prepare for that, but fortunately I've got, three people on this crew that I'm with that are amazing people that have, give a lot of grace, that have a lot of patience, that have an awesome sense of humor. And so I have no doubt that we will gel quickly and be able to, have the camaraderie necessary to be able to make this mission happen with ease.
One of the things you said up there on that stage, Randy, is that the most important thing about the mission is the next mission.
Right.
I'm paraphrasing. One of the things that I've always found fascinating about the space program is everything is sort of a link in a chain, and you may not be lucky enough to actually get to touch the moon, but the people who do won't be able to do that without what you're doing. Could you talk a little bit about the importance of that and the specific work that you'll be doing?
Well, certainly, as a test pilot, that's my profession. That's Luca's profession. Frank's a medical doctor, where he had to learn about the different parts of the body before he could go take care of the whole body. Andre's an engineer. He couldn't, build a ship or a submarine until he learned about the engines and the bulkheads and all of that type of stuff. And so we understand that completely. And this is we were selected for this moment in time, for this particular mission, because it is an essential step in the Artemis campaign.
There was a lot of talk today about the docking. You're docking twice with 2 different vehicles in space. And I guess I read that 2 of you had mishaps in space, right? I guess, Frank, you had a coolant issue on the ISS. You spent the most time in space?
For a single spacewalk.
For a single spacewalk.
American, correct.
And Luca, you had an issue on a spacewalk. I guess I'm wondering, and I don't want to downplay it, it was a serious issue on a spacewalk. How do you see the risks?
As far as I'm concerned, we understand that there are risks involved with operational environments. That is true for human space flight, it's true for military flight, it's true for operations over waters. It's part of what we do. We trust our training teams and the team at large to train us so that we can use our experience and training to come out of those situations.
But still, it's got to be, you've been through a challenge, you made it home, and now here you are again.
Yeah, and I think a challenge is a good word, right? That's you look at it as something to overcome. And honestly, everybody gets a little nervous when you're in a situation like that. It's natural for your heart rate to go up a little bit. But I think the only time it gets scary for me and probably for all of us is when you stop running out of answers. And so far, I've never gotten to that point, right? Between the ground team, an amazing ground team that we have supporting us, our crewmates, and then your training, you're just adapting and you're coming up with the next answer.
And Andre, you have there are 4 of you, but NASA is this enormous organization that is all dedicated to your safety. How do you see the four of you as a representative of NASA?
So the four of us as a representative of NASA, I mean, we have a diverse background, and from piloting to medical to engineering, right? We can, have all these different skills that solve the problems that we're talking about, right? Like, there's training involved that gives us all the procedures and phenomenal contingency plans that we can do to solve it. But it's also when, there's a chance we have a situation that is not in one of those contingency plans, right? And we need background that's maybe not aligned with the training from other skill sets we've had in our past careers to think about, how we're going to solve this unforeseen circumstance. So I think from us having all of those different backgrounds, we're pulled from an office that is also very diverse. And so it's really nice to see that as these missions go on to 4, 5, and 6, I'm hoping there's other diverse backgrounds that get pulled to come together and then be able to stitch all of our brains and basically solve those problems.
You were the backup astronaut for Artemis II, is that right?
Correct.
So there must have been mixed emotions about watching that mission, and you must be elated that you get to go this time.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching that launch. I was in my closeout crew uniform right by the closeout crew truck, right? And the closeout crew is the crew that straps in the crew, closes the hatch, and makes sure they're safe. And I just saw that rocket going off, and I was just screaming those crew, like their names, and just making sure they're gonna go up, no aborts, all that stuff, and it was great. And I was just very excited for them so that they can go out there and do the mission. And then when I got the call, like, I'm gonna go, which to me, I wasn't expected to go as a rookie, and if it was the actual moon landing, it would have been maybe different. But the fact that we have this accelerated mission and it's orbital, and I have a test background, multiple experience with submarines and things like that, I thought this would be perfect, right? And I'm very excited to also bring the information and skills that we learned on Artemis II within the crew here to share that, baton basically back up and say, hey, this is, here's some of the things we saw from the mission or the training, here's how we're gonna do it better, right? And I think that's gonna be pretty valuable for all of us to make sure we don't forget what we've learned on the previous missions.
I think you're selling yourself short when you call yourself a rookie. But you, Randy, you actually flew on the shuttle.
Yes.
How do you compare the two? And what are you feeling now about being part of this mission, the Artemis program?
The shuttle had over like 1,100 switches and circuit breakers and knobs that the crew had to learn to be able to operate the spacecraft because it was 70s and then 80s technology. And it took 4 on the flight deck to be able to operate the thing safely, to be able to launch, fly the mission and return back on entry. Now we've got a switch with 60-something, 60-something switches, 3 display units, can be operated, we've got 2 crew members to operate it, but can be operated with just 1. And so technology has made it so we are not as reliant on the spread out and distributed part of the spacecraft. And so that's super neat. One thing we found out from flying shuttle with solid rocket motors that, well, when we went uphill, when you're on those solid roads, it's like you're on a bicycle on a cobblestone road. And so that's what we expected from Artemis II. They come back and go, nah, it was pretty smooth. So the difference between having a shuttle on the side of the tank and the solids over here on the edge versus now the crew's up here on top. And it's just getting the thrust right through here, then they don't have the vibration. So it's amazing how, that same type of solid rocket technology is different to the humans that are inside the spacecraft between these 2 very different generational aircraft or spacecraft.
And there's a sense of history here that...
Absolutely.
Anything any of you would like to add about that before we wrap up? About the historic nature of what you're about to do?
Well, I am honored by the role that's been given to me to support this crew as a pilot, but I'm also very humbled by the task, the prospect, and honestly, the simple fact that as a European, I will be one of the first ones to contribute to the Artemis program. I don't know if it's a sense of history, but certainly I give a lot of thought to the fact that I have to give my best and deserve my place among this crew.
Thank you guys very much for your time. We appreciate it.